What was that? Tony muttered, his voice barely audible over the soft hum of the wind outside his tent. He froze, his hand hovering over the mug of steaming liquid he had just poured. The sound was faint but distinct, a rustle, like someone or something moving just beyond the thin fabric of his shelter. Probably just the wind, he reassured himself, though his grip on the mug tightened. Proxima B wasn't known for its hospitality. The planet's alien wilderness was a sprawling expanse of unfamiliar flora and fauna, most of it harmless, but some of it, well, less so. Tony had been briefed extensively before the mission, but no amount of training could prepare someone for the eerie stillness of an alien night. Another rustle. This time, it was closer. Tony set the mug down and reached for his flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness as he unzipped the tent flap, his heart pounding. "Hello?" he called out, his voice firm but cautious. He stepped outside, the flashlight sweeping over the dense underbrush and strange, glowing plants that dotted the landscape. And then he saw it. A figure, humanoid but unmistakably alien, stood at the edge of the clearing. Its skin shimmered faintly, a pearlescent hue that reflected the light in mesmerizing patterns. Large, almond-shaped eyes locked onto his, their depths swirling with colors he couldn't name. The creature was small, barely reaching his chest, and it shivered visibly in the cool night air. Tony's first instinct was to retreat, to zip the tent shut and pretend he hadn't seen anything. But something about the way it stood there, trembling and vulnerable, tugged at him. "Are you cold?" he asked, feeling foolish as the words left his mouth. Of course, it couldn't understand him. The alien tilted its head, a gesture that seemed almost human, and took a hesitant step forward. Tony's heart raced. He didn't know if this was an invitation to help or a prelude to an attack. But then he noticed its hands, or what he assumed were hands, wrapped tightly around its torso, as if trying to conserve warmth. Against every protocol and ounce of training, Tony stepped aside and gestured toward the tent. "You can come in, just to warm up." The alien hesitated, its eyes flickering between him and the tent. Then, slowly, it moved closer, its movements graceful but cautious. Tony stepped back, giving it space as it ducked into the tent. The interior felt cramped with the two of them inside, but the alien seemed to relax slightly, its shivering subsiding in the relative warmth. Tony sat down across from it, keeping a respectful distance. "So, what brings you here?" he asked, more to fill the silence than expecting an answer. To his surprise, the alien's gaze fixed on him, and a soft, melodic sound emerged from its throat. It wasn't words, at least not in any language he knew, but there was an unmistakable cadence to it, like a song or a form of communication. Tony blinked. You're trying to talk to me, aren't you?" The alien tilted its head again, and the sound shifted, becoming more rhythmic. Tony couldn't understand it, but he could feel the intent behind it, a sense of curiosity, of cautious trust. He reached for his translator device, a small handheld gadget designed to decode basic alien languages. He hadn't expected to use it on this mission, but now he was grateful he had packed it. The device hummed to life as he pointed it toward the alien. "Okay, let's see if this works. Can you try that again?" The alien's song-like sounds resumed, and the translator began to process the input. After a moment, a mechanical voice emerged from the device. "Cold. Lost. No harm." Tony's eyebrows shot up. "You're lost?" The alien nodded, a gesture that seemed universally understood. "Cold. Alone," the translator echoed. Tony felt a pang of sympathy. He couldn't imagine being stranded on a foreign planet, surrounded by unfamiliar dangers. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe here." The alien's eyes seemed to soften, and it relaxed further, its shimmering skin taking on a warmer glow. Tony wasn't sure if that was a sign of gratitude or just a natural response to the heat, but it was comforting nonetheless. As the night wore on, Tony found himself talking more, filling the silence with stories of Earth and his life back home. The alien listened intently, its gaze never wavering. Occasionally, it would respond with its melodic sounds, and the translator would provide snippets of meaning. "Strange place, kindness rare, thank you." By the time dawn broke, Tony felt an unexpected bond with the creature. It wasn't just an alien anymore. It was a being with thoughts, feelings, and a story he wanted to understand. But as the light of the new day illuminated the landscape, Tony realized something else. The alien wasn't just lost. It was being hunted. The revelation came when the alien's gaze snapped toward the horizon, its body tensing. Tony followed its line of sight and saw movement. Shadows flitting between the trees, too large and deliberate to be mere animals. "Friends of yours?" Tony asked, his voice tinged with unease. The alien shook its head vehemently. "Danger. Hide," the translator relayed. Tony's mind raced. He wasn't equipped for a confrontation, especially not with whatever was out there. But he couldn't just abandon the alien. "Okay," he said, grabbing his pack and stuffing essentials into it. "We need to move." The alien watched him, its eyes wide with a mixture of fear and trust. Tony held out a hand. "Come on. We'll figure this out together." The alien hesitated for only a moment before placing its hand in his. Its skin was cool and smooth, almost like glass, but the grip was firm. Together, they stepped out into the wilderness, the shadows of their pursuers growing closer with each passing moment. As they navigated the alien terrain, Tony realized that his mission on Proxima B was no longer about data collection or exploration. It was about survival and protecting the fragile bond he had formed with the mysterious being at his side. Hours turned into a blur as Tony and the alien traversed the rugged landscape. The glowing flora provided an otherworldly light, but the sense of unease never left Tony's chest. The alien's occasional glances behind them told him they were still being followed. "We need to find shelter," Tony muttered, scanning the terrain. The alien seemed to understand and pointed toward a rocky outcrop in the distance. They quickened their pace, the urgency of their situation driving them forward. When they reached the outcrop, Tony realized it was more than just a cluster of rocks. A narrow crevice led into a cavern, hidden from view. "Good eye," he said, glancing at the alien. "Let's hope it's empty." The cavern was small but dry, with enough space for the two of them to rest. Tony set up a small perimeter alarm with what little equipment he had left. "This should give us a heads up if anything gets too close," he explained, though he wasn't sure if the alien understood. As they settled in, the alien began to hum softly, a sound that seemed to resonate with the cavern walls. Tony watched in fascination as the shimmering patterns on its skin shifted, creating a soothing display of colors. It was mesmerizing, and for a moment, he forgot about the danger outside. "You're full of surprises," he said with a small smile. The alien tilted its head, its melodic hum continuing. The translator struggled to keep up, but Tony caught fragments. "Calm. Safe. Gratitude." Tony leaned back against the wall, exhaustion finally catching up with him. "We'll figure this out," he murmured. "Together." The next few days were a test of endurance and trust. Tony and the alien moved cautiously, avoiding open spaces and staying one step ahead of their pursuers. Along the way, Tony learned more about his companion. The alien's name was something the translator couldn't fully render, so Tony settled on calling it Lumi, a nod to its glowing skin. Lumi proved to be resourceful, using its knowledge of the terrain to find hidden paths and edible plants. Tony, in turn, shared his survival skills, teaching Lumi how to set traps and purify water. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, built on mutual reliance and understanding. But the danger never ceased. The shadows that had haunted them since the beginning grew bolder, and one fateful night, they caught up. The attack came without warning. Tony was jolted awake by the sound of the perimeter alarm. Lumi's glow intensified, its body tense with fear. "Run," the translator blared, but Tony knew it was too late. Figures emerged from the darkness, their forms sleek and menacing. They were alien, like Lumi, but their features were sharper, more predatory. Tony grabbed a makeshift weapon, a sharpened stick, and positioned himself between Lumi and the attackers. "Stay behind me," he said, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. The first attacker lunged, and Tony swung with all his strength. The stick connected, and the creature recoiled with a hiss. Lumi's hum turned into a sharp, piercing note, and Tony realized it was a call for help. To his astonishment, the sound seemed to work. The attackers hesitated, their movements faltering as Lumi's call echoed through the air. Taking advantage of the moment, Tony grabbed Lumi's hand. "Now's our chance. Run." They sprinted through the wilderness, the attackers close behind. Just when Tony thought they were out of options, Lumi led him to a clearing where a strange, glowing structure stood. It looked like a portal, its edges shimmering with energy. Lumi turned to him, its eyes filled with urgency. "Safe. Go." Tony hesitated. "What about you?" Lumi shook its head, gesturing for him to step through. "Protect? You." Tony's heart clenched. He didn't want to leave Lumi behind, but the sound of the attackers closing in left him no choice. "I'll come back for you," he promised, stepping into the portal. The last thing he saw was Lumi's glowing form, standing resolute against the approaching danger. Then, with a flash of light, Tony was gone. When Tony awoke, he was back on the mission base, surrounded by concerned faces. "You're lucky to be alive," one of his colleagues said. But Tony's thoughts were elsewhere, his mind racing with memories of Lumi. He knew his mission had changed. Proxima B wasn't just a planet to study. It was a place filled with life, with beings worth protecting. And as long as Lumi was out there, Tony knew he had to return. Because some bonds, no matter how unlikely, were worth fighting for.